Live.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Corey. All right, we'll call the joint or I guess we're not joint, House Transportation, Highways, Military Affairs Committee to order. Get roll call, please. Excused.
Here.
Representative Larson.
Excused.
Representative McCann. Here. Representative Nicholas.
Used. No, he's absent.
Posey. Here. Vice Chair Carter.
Here.
John White. I'm here.
He didn't tell me I wasn't going to be here. Thank you, Corey. Just for everybody's edification, Representative Banks and Representative Larson did inform me they will be out of attendance, so they will be excused on all votes. I do believe Representative Larson left committee votes here. So with that being said, we have potentially 3 bills ahead of us. I appreciate the general being here. We will try to work through and try to get her done so you guys didn't waste a lunch hour on this. So we'll get her started here with House Bill 145. We have Representative Minority Floor Leader Yen. If you would please walk us through your bill.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So, I want to hopefully get this out of the way quickly so you can get to your other bills. I bring before you House Bill 145, removing triple taxation for resident EV drivers. So you see this short title. What do I mean by triple taxation for resident EV drivers? So if you are a resident and you own an EV in the state of Wyoming, you pay a $200 registration fee, which I know the good chairman knows a lot about. You pay sales tax when you charge externally, and then you pay this what's called alternative fuel tax. If you drive a gas-powered car, you pay your normal property tax on your car when you register, and then you pay fuel tax when you fuel up at a gas station. What the bill attempts to do is try to balance between those who own EVs in the state who are paying this $200 fee and those that drive through the state with electric vehicles, as well as just making quite a bit more business friendly across the board for folks who own these chargers and charging stations and kind of streamline the taxation. Most of this bill is similar to what the committee worked on prior to its current committee, because I don't think you guys worked on it last interim. So those of you that were on the committee before this year are very familiar with most of the language on here. What the bill does is it changes the alternative fuel tax so it only charges level 3 fast chargers. And so what are level 3 fast chargers? They're the ones that are most analogous to a fuel pump. So if you're driving long distances, you want to fuel up your car, but you're driving an EV, you stop at these level 3 chargers so you can fuel up and keep going. So when you're crossing I-80, these are the chargers that you're going to be using. It removes the tax from level 2 chargers. So level 2 chargers are different. They're the kind of chargers that people plug in at work or plug in at home. They're what's called trickle charging sometimes. That's where people who own their electric vehicles will do most of their charging. So if you're a resident driver in the state of Wyoming, you're probably charging at home 95% of the time. Or maybe you'll have a workplace charger. Sometimes, so we also have these chargers kind of scattered around the state. You'll have public ones at workplaces. You'll have public ones at hotels, especially. So hotels may have them. And you'll have public ones at sometimes downtown. So like downtown Laramie and downtown Rock Springs had level 2 chargers. And so those level 2 chargers, the intent is because it takes 8 hours to charge your car on a level 2 charger, you're not really there to charge your car. You're there so your car can be charging while you do business somewhere. So it's an amenity where I'm going to choose the place where I can charge my car while I'm doing my shopping over the place where I can do my shopping, but I don't get this local amenity as well. It also, so that's why we choose charging the level 3s over the level 2s. Level 3s is kind of a misnomer. They're also called DC fast chargers. I won't get into that. We exempt them from sales tax, just like we exempt fuel tax from sales tax. Frankly, I think this was just an oversight where we were doing this double taxation for alternative fuels, but we weren't doing this for fuel tax. So this aligns it with fuel tax. We actually have the level 3 charger a little bit higher than what it would be on a per mile basis for compared to fuel tax. And this is to make up for just in case some of those travelers are doing some of their charging on level 2s. And then we also put in this refund program. So $200 is more than, I mean, it's more than most people pay in fuel tax generally on average. I think there may be some quibbling there, but the idea is that we can put in this refund program. So if a resident EV driver is using a level 3 charger, fast charger, they can get a refund on them if they so choose. My guess is 90% of drivers aren't really going to do the work of going through the refund, but I think it's fair to just offer it. And with that, I can go through the bill and just go through each part if the committee would like, but I would also want to reserve time for the department and anyone else. So it's up to the committee on whether they'd like me to walk through the bill individually.
Representative Yin, Minority Floor Leader Yin, just for the record, I introduced you, but if you would, please introduce yourself for the record.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm Mike Yin. I am the representative for House District 16, which is in Jackson. Oh, and the one other thing, Mr. Chairman, I forgot to mention, I also have before you a proposed amendment. The proposed amendment, the idea, so for sales tax, you do quarterly remission to for sales tax, but for the and some of the issue was the department had already started charging people on both level 2 and level 3 chargers. And they were, because the current alternative fuel tax statute said they have to remit it monthly. For some of these chargers, you were getting maybe 5 cents worth of taxes on a monthly basis for some of these level 2 chargers, where having to send in the paperwork costs more than the taxes. And frankly, the burden of even measuring it in the manpower of doing all the paperwork was a lot. So the idea is to give the department a little leeway, specifically within the alternative fuel tax statute, to say, you know, all of these other alternative fuels are doing it monthly already, but we want to give the ability to department, if they so choose, to allow for quarterly remission of sales taxes, collection of sales taxes instead of monthly, just to lessen the burden on, frankly, everyone, businesses and the department alike.
Okay. Committee, what is your pleasure? I'll ask the committee, and I'm going to ask point blankly, how many of you read the bill and understand what's going on? I know Representative Yin just gave us a really good understanding, but would you like the Minority Floor Leader to go through the bill quickly, or do you guys feel comfortable enough with what we have? Representative Wiley?
Mr. Chairman, you know, we've worked this for a couple of years. I think this fills in some of the gaps of what we were working. I think a high overview would be okay by me.
Okay. Representative Geringer?
Mr. Chairman, I defer on whether or not we go through this bill line by line. I do have a question though for
Please,
Representative Yin.
by all means.
Representative Yin, thank you for bringing this and appearing here. I guess my question is there a way to look at this if we have a fuel powered vehicle and a passenger vehicle and an electric powered vehicle? Is there a comparison side by side, say a year's worth of driving, same miles, whatever? Are you able to kind of give me an idea of how much the fuel powered vehicle pays in taxes and titling registration fees versus how much an electric vehicle would pay, just to kind of make it apples to apples?
Sure.
Representative Yin?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And Representative Geringer, appreciate the question. This was actually a very in-depth discussion that we had during the registration fee discussion. In my calculations at that time, which was frankly 6 years ago, maybe at this point, but I don't think we've changed our fuel tax since then, so I think it's still accurate. For like an F-150, I looked up the average mileage for a light duty truck in one of the federal governments that have like average mileage for a truck on a per yearly basis, and it came out to around $150. And so, and that's why at the time I did argue that 200 was too high. Frankly, you know, I do think, to be fair, there is a point where we need to up the fuel tax, and maybe that would match it to the $200. All that to say is it's about $150 in my opinion. I think there will be some other people that have different calculations that they've done more recently. But it was my opinion that $150 is the average fuel tax paid by a F-150.
Good. Okay. Committee, any further questions for Representative Yen? What we'll do, I'll have you just do a brief overview of the bill. No need to go line by line, just maybe section by section, and explain what each section does, and we'll move from there.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And all that to say, my goal with the bill is to kind of have an even playing field. So it is very similar on average with what we have for fuel tax right now. And that's the amount of collections I'd like on a per vehicle basis. For section 1, these are a lot of so what we're doing is we're editing the alternative fuel tax statute. Alternative fuel tax statute had this word of electricity as an alternative fuel. And so we're kind of going in there. We're talking about adding plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, which are different than all electric vehicles. So they pay fuel tax, but sometimes they charge as well. And so the idea of the decal, and this came back from when it was an interim committee document, we had that $100 to kind of put that in the middle there. We exempt the sales of alternative fuels from sales tax. We're editing a lot of the definitions. Basically, this is where we're talking about level 3s is what we're taxing. We're not taxing all electricity. It's specifically at a DC fast charger on page 4. Update some of the definition. Again, a lot of this was interim committee work all the way page 6, page 7. And this is just to make sure that we're very precise on what actually gets taxed and what actually doesn't get taxed. Page 8. Again, yeah, it's just ensuring we're doing the taxing correctly. The taxation rate, so this is on page 9. This is how much we are taxing on a per kilowatt hour basis. So kilowatt hour is the measurement of energy. A gallon of gas, for example, is also a container of energy. And so this is a similar, the idea here is that this tax rate is similar on a per mile basis of what we could charge.
Representative Yen, just to make sure I remember this correctly, that is about the same price that this committee landed 2 years ago on the interim bill. Is that right? 3.5 cents?
Mr. Chairman, I think that Senator Kolb had bumped it, and I wanted to give him the opportunity to do that again if he so chooses. I disagreed with him on his argument on why to bump it, but in my opinion, this rate is a little bit below where I think I might have presented, but above, but below where Senator Kolb is. Okay, page 10, 11. Again, this is just added kilowatt hours instead of using the gasoline gallon equivalent, which is what the alternative fuel tax currently does. And then we get to page 13. This is describes the refund program. The goal here was to give really wide latitude because I didn't want to create too much of a burden on the department. And so I wanted to give them very wide latitude on how they administered the refund program. Basically says you get a year after, within 1 year, you can submit your receipts and everything's prescribed by the department on how you would do that. And then there is the fiscal note, which hopefully you all have read before coming here, but talks about, hopefully we would gain money. The idea would be that it would still be positive for the department, but it'd be more balanced where we are charging people who drive through and not just the people who live here.
Okay. Thank you for the overview, Representative Yen. Committee, any questions for Representative Yen? Seeing none, my only question to you, Representative Yen, and I think you touch on it on the proposed amendment, if I remember correctly, maybe not. No, you don't on this. It's just the administrative impact. When we start talking about doing the refunds, And I have absolutely no issue going back and doing the refunds and allowing that. My thought on that is the juice really worth the squeeze? Are we gonna end up creating a situation where we have somebody requesting a refund for $122, but it's gonna cost the state, $75 to do it? And manpower, all that kind of stuff to figure out how to do this. And so I'm just kind of curious what discussions were had with the department on this and, how you settled in on the refund portion.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to speak for the department. I did talk to them about it, both, historically before and recently today, even this morning. I want to make it as easy as possible for them, but I also think it's going to be a very, very rare occurrence. You should ask them how many currently registered EV drivers we have. I think it's still exceedingly low. So I think it won't even be worth the squeeze for most people to even do it, right? I might be an exception, right? I drive across the state 10 times a year, if not more. But it still would be, I have to collect all my receipts and give it to the department. But I think it's the right thing to do to offer it as a program.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, appreciate you, Representative Yen. We'll go ahead and bring up state agency. So let's bring up, let's start with YDOT. You guys just thought this bill and this idea was dead, didn't you? It's kind of like a bad zombie. It just keeps coming back. Please, for the record, just go ahead and introduce yourselves. And I noticed that you guys have your administrative impact. I'd like you guys to discuss that. And then just making sure that you guys have the understanding that this looks completely different than what we did in the interim. It seems like we've changed the way that we're going to structure this just a hair. So I would like you guys to maybe give us an understanding of what we're changing and why.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dennis Byrne. I'm the CFO with YDOT. I'll start at the high level, Mr. Chairman, then I'll go ahead and turn it over to Wayne and Kim, who actually administer fuel tax collection for the agency and the state. As Representative Yin had mentioned, and this really does kind of address some of the issues that we had talked about in several interims in the past, I think 3 or 4 interims actually talking about this topic. And of course, a couple of them are, we move away from GGE and towards the kilowatt hour, which is kind of the standard. So this is helpful in that manner. It also does really eliminate the issues we had with level 2 chargers and not really being able to determine someone's usage without forcing them to spend additional monies to, separately meter a level 2, which was going to, in some cases be significant investment for those individuals. So I think it really addresses those issues. With regard to the revenue, I think you have our fiscal note handy. And I'll probably defer to Wayne and Kim on some of the specifics there, Mr. Chairman. But overall, I think that this bill and the amendment probably helps us out quite a bit in terms of being able to administer, the collection of this fuel tax. And Mr. Chairman, with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Wayne and Kim with any details they would like to add to the discussion relevant to your question.
Kim, Wayne, welcome back to your nightmare and testifying in front of the Transportation Committee yet again.
I was specifically asked to make Kimberly speak.
Wayne has been kind of the lead horse on most of this, and I'm sure you're still about 3/4 of the way through the book, right?
I was gonna bring it just so I could show you we're still in possession of it. Because there was some thought about destroying it rather than reading the whole thing. It's hard for Kim to get the microphone, so I'll just keep talking. Wayne Hassinger, Fuel Tax Administration at YDOT. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we are, as Dennis said, this helps us administer the tax. This has been certainly a little challenging, especially with, like Dennis referenced, the level 2 folks that don't have a separate meter. We've actually been in the position to tell them to guess which is a taxing authority. That's a little uncomfortable. but we needed to administer the tax. This, taking it to the supercharger level, we're certainly happy to administer the tax there. I never want to talk about making our job easier, but it'll make us more effective. It appears certainly to be fair. The move to kilowatt hours, as we've talked over many interims, that is where we had hoped to go, because that is a cleaner measurement for the tax. The refund, and a lot of thanks to Representative Yen for involving us in the conversation. The refund process, we currently have some taxpayers that get refunds from our office, so that's not foreign to us. It will be a little different, as we will need to have access to registration, making sure that people applying for a refund are actually, their vehicles registered with the state of Wyoming. So it will be a little different process. The representative might be accurate. There might be not a lot of people that come back for it. But we're happy to administer it. I think our concern, and thus the fiscal note, is that it could take another, maybe not a full-time person, but it is another add-on to our mission. So that's part of the unknown. If only 10 people send in refund requests, that likely wouldn't take another person to achieve that. Matched, that unknown matched with, okay, there is going to be some work that we don't typically do to make sure that we only allow that person to go to the threshold of either the 100 or the 200. So keeping some databases, doing some research every time we look at a request, that would be a little different than our normal refund process. I should probably stop there and answer any questions.
I appreciate that. That helps me tremendously understand why we've changed what we have changed. Committee, any questions for Wayne or specifically Kim? Seeing none. So my question would be to any one of you. The amendment that we talk about is, we talk about required by department rules. So one would assume that you guys are going to go into a rulemaking process once the enaction of this happens. We could spell it out in statute if we want to, of what they would need to provide to you guys. I feel like putting that in statute makes it kind of be too concrete. I feel like the rulemaking process goes a little bit more fluid and gives you guys the opportunity to adjust as you see fit. Is that something that you guys can secure inside the rulemaking process of what documentation would need to be done, even though it's not spelled out in the refund program necessarily?
Mr. Chairman, Kim Peters, WYDOT, Fuel Tax Administration. Yes. Yeah,
Perfect.
we can take care of that in the rulemaking.
Okay. That solves my concern there then. Any further questions for WYDOT? Seeing none, you guys got off nice and easy, and maybe we can get this one across the finish line and we can actually kill this zombie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and call the Department of Revenue up now. If you guys have anything to add, nothing there, just kind of here for questions. Okay. Any other state agencies interested? Seeing nobody jump into the mic. Okay, we will close state agencies and we will open this up for public comment. We will take public comment for those that are interested in House Bill 145 in person first. And then I do know that we have a few that are out there in the ether. We will touch base with them. So please, if you're interested in 145, please come forward, fill the seats. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Please just provide your name and title, and the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Donna Burkholz, and I'm the Executive Director of Powder River Basin Resource Council. As you know, we are a statewide member-driven organization, and among our members' concerns is responsible use of our resources. We stand in support of HB 145 because the bill modernizes outdated vehicle tax policy, benefiting Wyoming residents, communities, and local businesses, while ensuring that out-of-state EV drivers contribute to maintaining the roads that they use. HB 145 is efficient because it allows residents to pay only one upfront fee that covers at-home and public charging, replacing those 3 overlapping taxes that have been mentioned. It also raises the alternative fuel tax to be commensurate with the state's fuel tax on gas-powered vehicles, as well as including plug-in hybrid vehicles to capture revenue at charging stations in addition to fuel pumps. For all of these reasons, we support this legislation. Thank you, and I stand for questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Committee, any questions for PRBRC? Ms. Burkholz? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Please come forward. I don't know the last time we had this many people in front of transportation. This is kind of fun having you guys all here. Please identify yourself and the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Anna Kaufman. I'm the Government Relations Manager with Wyoming Outdoor Council, and I'm going to hand it over to my colleague who's been working on this topic to introduce himself and give our testimony.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Jonathan Williams, and I'm the Energy Associate for the Wyoming Outdoor Council. We are Wyoming's oldest independent statewide conservation organization, representing thousands of members across the state. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this bill, and we do respectfully urge the committee to support this as well. Certainly, we see that HB 145 updates Wyoming's EV tax policies in a way that benefits residents, communities, and local businesses, while ensuring that out-of-state EV drivers contribute fairly to maintaining our roads and redirecting that fund back to WYDOT to repair roadways. Over the last 6 months, we've seen public charging stations go offline in communities across the state because of the new tax and licensing requirements that went into effect last fall. In many cases, level 2 station owners are shutting down public access because they cannot pay for the compliance costs or are unable to distinguish between electricity provided to EV charging from other uses, like powering an RV at a campground or from their internal fleet use. This bill fixes this problem. We also support reducing the tax burden on resident EV owners and drivers who are paying overlapping fees that exceeded those of comparable gas-powered vehicles. HB 145 streamlines that system, and we believe the refund provisions will be especially helpful for individuals without access to home charging or for those who frequently travel long distances. And if I may, just based off of where the discussion's been, I wanted to support Representative Yin had done an analysis, he said 6 years ago, on that rough apples to apples comparison. We had done one during the last session and I think even sent it into this committee, and just want to confirm that we were roughly seeing an annual EV kind of registration fee if it was, kind of really comparable to a gas powered vehicle, of if that was right sized closer to 150 for an annual fee versus 200, that would be a bit more in line with what actual gas-powered vehicle owners pay each year in taxes and fees. And we did the full analysis and looked at efficiency differences across those vehicle types, across different light-duty vehicle profiles, and just wanted to offer that to the committee. And on the refund front, we also did some analysis on that front. I don't have those exact numbers with me today, but there was a question on, is it significant? And for the vast majority of drivers, I would agree with Representative Yin that it is probably not a significant portion, but there are fringe cases where it is very significant. And those individuals, based on our analyses, could be charged 4 to 5 times more in annual taxes than a comparable like gas vehicle would pay. And so that could really add up. And the fringe case I used to kind of illustrate this is I had a friend in the neighborhood that I live in personally, and he chose to buy an EV but did not have home charging, and he only had street parking. And so he would drive his EV every day or whenever he needed to charge it to a public charging station. And so, for that person, they were paying this upfront fee to kind of cover their home charging, but weren't really reaping the benefits of that because they were then paying fees at public charging stations. And so just want to offer why that refund is one mechanism to do that. But I would also agree with Representative Yin that most people will probably defer sending in receipts to collect that tax refund. And it could be another reason to consider that upfront yearly fee is that, for the majority of EV drivers in the state, they're going to probably go and charge at a DC fast charger and not get that refund. And maybe that's another reason to consider is 200 too high? Is that where we want to keep it? And I would defer to this committee, but wanted to offer those thoughts and can provide more information upon follow-up. And so just in conclusion, we believe that HB 145 is a pragmatic update to Wyoming's EV policy. It supports local businesses, protects residents from unnecessary double or triple taxation, and ensures that out-of-state EV drivers pay their fair share of roadways that they are using. And we respectfully ask for your support, and we would both stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Wyoming Outdoor Council? With either Anna or Jonathan? Seeing none, thank you very much for the information on there. I do appreciate getting some of that, the little bit more detailed information on this. You know, I was the brainchild behind House Bill 166 back in 2019, and we had a good discussion on it. Representative Yen and I did, and we got her out there. And I happen to like the 200, but I also understand where you guys all come from, and there may be a discussion on that out on the floor. So appreciate you guys. Thank you.
And we would just certainly welcome ourselves for further consultation and questions later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else in the room like to speak on House Bill 145? Seeing none, let's go ahead and open up. If you want to let them both in, I will go ahead and bring them both on first. And then I think I have Ms. Cox is listed first, so we'll take Alicia first.
Also, Mr. Chairman, we do have an additional person online that may not have registered prior, but I have asked everybody to raise their hands when the bill they would like to speak on comes in before them.
Okay. Ms. Cox, good to see you. Welcome down here from windy and dry Cheyenne. Hopefully you guys are getting some snow up there. Please introduce yourself. The floor is yours, Alicia.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Brown and members of the committee. My name is Alicia Cox, and I'm the Executive Director of Yellowstone Teton Clean Cities, a nonprofit headquartered in Jackson, Wyoming, and serving all of Wyoming, Montana, and eastern Idaho. We work to advance alternative fuels and transportation. We are in strong support of House Bill 145. This bill provides clarity to the new licensing and alternative fuel tax program for electric vehicle charging station owners rolled out by WYDOT this past summer, and it removes triplicity in taxes paid by Wyoming residents. The program, as it was rolled out this past summer, unintentionally hindered Level 2 station owners' ability to offer their stations and has also hindered the growth of Level 2 stations in the state. Several owners had to remove their publicly available Level 2 stations, so this bill fixes this. Preserving and growing the availability of Level 2 stations in the state is essential for electric vehicle travel through the state on Wyoming Energy for tourists and residents alike. Level 2 stations are integral to supporting tourist travel, our number 2 industry in the state, as more and more travelers choose electric, particularly when traveling to the beautiful natural attractions of our state, such as our national parks and landmarks. Level 2 stations are located where travelers have a long vehicle dwell time, allowing for a more convenient charging experience while travelers enjoy the tourist destinations or downtown area they have come to enjoy, or to simply charge while they stay at hotels or other lodging accommodations. Yellowstone Teton Clean Cities offers a Level 2 rebate program, and we have paused this program until there's further clarity for the alternative fuel tax collection process. We look forward to continuing our program in the near future. As an EV owner myself, and I travel regionally and throughout the state quite extensively for work, recreation, and my children's sports, I'm constantly checking maps to ensure there are Level 2 stations at our overnight accommodations or nearby locations where we are already planning to go. Requiring the alternative fuel tax at DC fast charging stations is the simple way to capture a fuel tax for out-of-state electric vehicle travelers, and I and Yellowstone Teton Clean Cities support this bill. This type of alternative fuel tax bill has been proposed for several sessions, and we encourage this committee to usher this one across the finish line to provide clarity to the tax collection process for charging stations in Wyoming. Thank you, and I can also take questions. And also, I have done a calculation. we did as far as what a gasoline vehicle might pay in fuel taxes. If I went off the national average, which was 11,700 miles, and that was because a presentation to your committee in 2020 used that amount, and say a vehicle with 24.2 miles per gallon, which is I think about the average for a gasoline vehicle, they would pay $113.16 in fuel taxes. So that's another point to consider as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. Appreciate your testimony. Committee, any questions for Ms. Cox and Yellowstone Clean Cities Coalition? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Ms. Cox. I've got Patrick Lawson. Please introduce yourself, Mr. Lawson, and looks like you might be in an EV currently, so.
I am currently in an EV. I'm always in an EV. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm Patrick Lawson, CEO of Wild West EV. We're a really small company in central Wyoming. We started putting electric car charging stations, primarily these level 2s, across central Wyoming where there wasn't any options. We currently operate 18 stations across 8 locations. We had 978 charging sessions last year. We started complying with the fuel tax in October. Our check that we sent out for the fuel tax was $6.13. Every station's averaging about 34 cents a month. So it's just a lot of work figuring out all the math and everything and reporting it and paying it. And the postage is more than what we're paying. So it's not, I don't think it's I think the burden of it on the level 2 stations is like the whole juice is worth the squeeze type of situation. I think that the per kilowatt on the level 3s will benefit the state more in terms of revenue coming in. And I really like the way that this whole bill is laid out, and I'm in support of it. Just wanted to get that out there.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Committee.
Thank you.
Mr. Lawson and Wild West EV. Seeing none, thank you. Buckle up.
Oh, yeah, when I'm driving. Yep, definitely.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there any further public testimony? Is the other person interested in raising their hand on this bill? Okay, perfect. We will go ahead and close public testimony and we'll bring the bill back to the dais. Committee, what's your pleasure? Moved by Wiley.
Second.
Seconded by Geringer. Thank you. All right, committee, let's work this bill quickly. We do have a proposed amendment. Let's go ahead and dispose of that first and entertain a motion on the proposed amendment brought forward by Representative Yen. I'd also like to say thank you for having that printed and distributed to the body. That helps tremendously. Committee, anybody want to move that amendment? So moved by Geringer. Seconded by Posey. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the proposed amendment to House Bill 145 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. That amendment passes. Is there any further amendments? We'll walk through the bill quickly. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. 4. 5. 6 or 7. 8 or 9. 10 or 11. 12 or 13. And last, got the back page here. Just want to make sure department's good with timelines on this. Everything else going into effect that quickly. Okay. All right. Seeing no further discussion and or amendments. Nobody looking at me to try to get their voice out on this. We'll go ahead and call roll on House Bill 145 as amended, please.
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 145 as amended. Representative Banks is excused.
Yes.
Representative Geringer.
Aye.
Representative Larson left the absentee vote of aye. Representative McCann. Representative Nicholas is absent.
Yep.
Representative Posey.
Aye.
Vice Chair Tarver.
Aye.
Representative Wiley.
Aye.
Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that is 7 ayes, 1 absent, 1 excused.
Okay. House Bill 145 is passed the committee. Representative Yen, I imagine you'll take this one out if we can get there within the next 3 days. Yeah, we've got a while to go. All right, thank you, committee. Let's go ahead and move on to House Bill 146. Representative Storer, welcome to Transportation. please introduce yourself and let's walk us through the bill and provide us an understanding of what this little bill is doing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the Transportation Committee. It's my pleasure to be here in front of you for the first time. And I'll discuss and present House Bill 146. I think we know that rising electricity costs are negatively impacting Wyoming families and households. These are real costs. Some of the most dramatic cost drivers are from skyrocketing wildfire liability insurance. But we also have fuel cost adjustments, transmission costs, and higher demand that are driving costs up for our consumers. So while Wyoming households still enjoy rates that are below the national average, families are feeling the pinch. So what this bill provides is a way for those families to offset additional costs by investing in a plug-in solar system. That's a system that typically consists of 1 to 4 solar panels and is designed for simple self-installation, and that is connected to the home's electrical system via a plug into a standard wall outlet. Simply put, this bill makes small solar energy systems accessible to all Wyomingites, not just homeowners or high-income households. And it creates some smart safety standards while reducing unnecessary red tape to keep such systems affordable for all. So while relatively new here in the US, Europe has deployed these extensively over the last decade. There's about 4 million systems in Germany alone, and they have a solid safety record. Here in the US, a similar bill passed unanimously in Utah last year and is being considered in 25 other states. We've now have available a safety standard developed by UL Standards and Engagement. And I believe with this legislation, it really ensures that we create a greater safety for plug-in solar products because they'll be required to meet national product safety standards as a result. So unlike net metering, it does not ask the utility to pay for the electricity generated by the customer, but such systems reduce administrative burden on both the customers and the utilities by exempting truly small systems from the interconnection process while maintaining safety and grid protection standards. So it's a great way for Wyoming's hardworking families to reduce their electric bills as rates increase. And I can walk briefly through the bill if
I will ask the committee. Most of the time, I'm pretty stern on my committee, make sure that they've read the bill and they understand it, what it is before we come in here, so we don't have to go through it. Committee, what's your thoughts on this? It's a pretty short bill. Everybody understand it, or would you like Representative Storer to go through it? Seeing the shaking of the heads, we will keep you from having to go through the bill. Do you have anything further, Representative Storer?
that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to wait. Does anybody on the committee have any questions? Okay, so I will open up a couple of my questions here. So the first thing that I have, Representative Storer, you talk about this, blazing through over in Utah. It is my understanding that since blazing through over there in a unanimous vote, getting through there has been some implementation issues. Can you speak to me a little bit about the implementation and some of the concerns that are being arisen out of Utah?
I think there may be some other folks that could address that. My understanding is that I think with the UL standard being developed, the bill was passed prior to that getting developed, that's creating some of, that's making it clearer exactly what these safety standards need to be for the products involved.
Okay. And then my only other question here is, as we look at expanding this, can you talk to me a little bit about why the 1,200 was kind of the set limit? Why we didn't go to 2,400? Where this is certainly not something this committee hears and sees on a regular basis. This is certainly a more corporations related bill. So as I'm looking at this, I'm curious why we landed at 1,200 watts.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question. I believe the answer is 1,200 because we operate under a 120 volt system here in the US. And as my high school physics reminds me, that watts times amps equals voltage, or the other way around. In any case, 12 amps, a 1200 volt results in, I think it's 12 amps, or no, sorry, 10 amps, and that would be a standard household circuit. Minimum is usually 15 amps, so it would within the 80% limit for safety standards, essentially. So it's right sized essentially for our electrical system.
Perfect. That helps me tremendously. Thank you. Committee, any further questions? Okay, appreciate you, Representative Storr. Thank you very much. We will go ahead and bring forward any state agencies that would like to discuss this. Welcome, gentlemen. I don't recognize either one of you, which means this is the first time you've ever been in front of the Transportation Committee, so welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it might be the first time. I'm Chris Petrie. I'm the Deputy Chairman at the Wyoming Public Service Commission. And with me is Mike Robinson, Chairman of the Public Service Commission. We have not got a lot to say about this today. I just have a few things to fill you in on, I guess. One is that perhaps not all, but many utilities, many electric utilities now have tariffs that prohibit backfeeding devices other than net metering devices. So that would be a bit of a housekeeping task. I don't know if we explained that in our previous communications on this, but it seems like not a big deal for us, a ministerial task primarily. Another thing, and just an observation about the bill and the language used, these are referred to as devices, whereas net metering arrangements are referred to as systems. And it seems that this is really a system as well. It has a generating component, an inverter, regulating component. And so just for the sake of consistency in our statute, that might be worth discussing, although it's not a critical matter. And then the one thing that I did find a little bit bothersome, and the reason for us to worry about this is that if there are any controversies between customers and utilities, we will be the ones to hear about them, I presume. That's what it looks like. We've had that with net metering installations, disputes about what kind of cutoff devices are needed, whether a manually operated fuse that's visible to linemen and so on can be required by the utility or not. And so we've had a handful of those kind of issues come to the commission in the past. And one that I see here that I don't know if it's sufficiently clear is whether somebody might use multiple PIPVs at the same place. And so the utilities, I would be very surprised if you don't hear safety concerns and code concerns from utilities, as we have, and not on this bill, but on net metering systems. But I'm not sure if you read these proposed statutes that it's completely clear, or if it's meant to be completely clear, that it's one 1200 watt system or device per meter, per service location. And I suspect that it would be more troubling to some if this was a situation where you might go to Harbor Freight and buy 15 of them. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything else. Be happy to answer any questions, and we have a hearing in progress, so we may not be able to stay around to the last minute, but we will stay around in case you need anything from us.
Understood very much. Appreciate that. Committee, any questions for the Public Service Commission? Appreciate you gentlemen being here in the middle of a hearing. I don't see anybody wanting to speak highly right now, so appreciate you guys being here. All right, so we've got all of the state agencies. Let's go ahead and open this up for public comment. If there is anybody with public comment, please come forward. And feel free to fill the chairs so we can potentially just work through this as quickly as possible, and we can potentially still get the general and everybody else taken care of and possibly work through these three bills. Again, if you'll please introduce yourself, name and title and the organization you represent.
Good afternoon, Chairman Brown and committee members. I'm Stephen Magnifico, a community organizer with the Powder River Basin Resource Council. And this is Donna Burkholz, the executive director of the Powder River Basin Resource Council. We represent this organization that has for 50 years advocated for responsible resource development in Wyoming and the well-being of its communities, and also its affiliate group, the Alliance for Renewable Energy. This bill will greatly benefit members of both groups. The Affordable Electricity Act of 2026 is an important step to empowering Wyoming residents to take control of their energy future. This legislation would empower renters, folks that live in prefabricated or manufactured homes, and people for whom they are homeowners of a regular stick-built home, but the math just does not work in their favor for installing a full-size home solar system to still have some energy independence and options for energy affordability. And I'd like to share a couple of examples of this within our organization among many. One of our members is a recently married man who hopes to one day own a stick-built home and start a family. He currently rents a prefabricated home where he cannot install solar panels. This bill would enable him to save money on his electric bill in the hopes of pursuing his dreams for the future. Another one of our members is an older retired gentleman who would love to benefit from solar energy. He lives in a stick-built home, but he has gas appliances in his home. The math does not work out for him to install a regular full-size solar system on his roof. This bill would enable him to benefit from a small plug-in solar energy system and save on his electricity bill. I implore you to support this bill as it helps to build a Wyoming where everyone, not just homeowners, can benefit from solar energy. Thank you, and we stand for questions.
All right, thank you very much. Committee, yes, Representative Wiley.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So if we look at an annual cost per home, what would this device save the average homeowner?
So it's estimated that at current costs, this would save the average person about, a couple $100 each year. However, as these systems proliferate, the cost of these systems would go down and those savings could go up.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions for PRBRC? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please come on up. We can keep tallying these seats and go through this. And we have two, I believe, or maybe three now. Is that correct online?
Currently, Mr. Chairman, I have one individual who's raising their hand to testify on
Okay.
this.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Williams, please identify yourself again for the record, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, again, my name is Jonathan Williams. I'm the Energy Associate for the Wyoming Outdoor Council. We are Wyoming's oldest independent conservation organization, and we represent thousands of members statewide. Thank you for the opportunity to comment in support of HB 146, and we respectfully urge the committee to pass this bill. As others have noted, rising energy costs continue to challenge Wyoming families, and we agree that HB 146 would give residents another practical tool to address those concerns. The strength of HB 146 is its simplicity and versatility. A resident can plug the system into a standard home outlet and begin realizing the benefits of low-cost electricity. These systems are accessible to homeowners and renters alike and can be installed in backyards, on fences, or on a front porch. This bill removes unnecessary barriers so Wyomingites can avoid lengthy and costly permitting and interconnection processes while still accessing low-cost electricity and maintaining safety. The bill addresses safety by requiring plug-in solar systems to comply with the National Electric Code and be certified by a nationally recognized testing laboratory. This means Wyoming families who choose plug-in solar do not need to understand the technical details that keep our homes safe. Ensuring safety is the purpose of third-party nationally recognized certification entities. They create public trust by developing standards, conducting research, testing products, and performing audits. They fully evaluate the implication of technologies like plug-in solar, so legislators, manufacturers, utilities, and consumers do not have to do so alone. UL Solutions recently announced it has launched a dedicated testing and certification program for plug-in solar systems, creating a clear safety framework to support their installation and use across the United States. UL is widely recognized and utilized. If you were to look around your home, you would likely find other common 1200-watt appliances, such as a coffee maker, an iron, or a small space heater bearing the UL mark, none of which needed a permit nor utility approval to plug in. And again, just based off of some of the conversation that's been had today on the concerns coming out of Utah, I personally haven't heard of any concerns coming out of Utah after the passage of their bill. And I've seen many states considering bills like what Wyoming is putting forward based off of that Utah language. So if there is a concern out there, it's one that I haven't seen. But I would agree with Representative Storr's understanding that there was a recently updated plug-in solar certification through the UL solution system, and that potentially there were some concerns out of Utah because that update was coming in the works. And so this is still under development. And to my understanding, there's not products readily available that would be sold, as soon as this is passed to the public in Wyoming. There'd still be some compliance timeline. So, and then, Mr. Chairman, to your question around why 1,200 watts, it's not a very exciting answer, but a standard home outlet would be rated to about 15 amps. And wiring and the various connection points are rated traditionally to run at 80% continuous load. And so you go from 15 amps down to 12 amps. 1,200 watts was selected because that's actually running at 10 amps. And so it's creating a margin of safety that is below what the wires and the NEC is saying is for a continuous power load. So hopefully that helps there. There was another question or another point raised that what if someone wanted to go buy multiple of these systems and install them at their home? You could imagine someone really excited wanting to have 4 systems in their backyard. There is, if you look at the bill, there is a limit to 1 per meter, and that is to prevent that. It is clear, and you can see it. I don't know the line, but that would be the source that would prevent that from happening. And then one final note that I want to add, I think this is a common concern, and it's around backfeeding or electrifying a grid that is down through the power that would be generated from the solar panel. And I want to offer to the committee that there are already in practice today microinverters that take the energy from a solar power and protect the grid from having that power go back onto the grid in the event of a power outage. That technology would then be adopted or adapted for these plug-in systems. And so, even right now I have microinverters on my own roof, and when the power goes out, this whole system shuts down and then auto goes back on without me having to go and flip a switch. And so I just offer that technology is there, UL certified processes that would be relied on there. So in conclusion, HB 146 is a practical, common sense measure that gives Wyoming families a simple and accessible way to lower their electricity bills and address rising costs. By removing unnecessary regulatory barriers and establishing clear safety measures, this bill empowers residents, homeowners, and renters alike to better control their energy use. We respectfully urge the committee to move HB 146 forward and vote in favor of this important policy. And I stand for any questions.
Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Williams, for being here and speaking on this. It was also brought up the idea of devices versus systems. I heard you mention systems a number of times. Is there any issue that you see in changing that terminology from devices to systems?
Mr. Williams.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I don't at this moment. And I know that this was something, do we think of this as a system or do we think of this as individual components? And that was something that the UL Solutions was looking into. And do we need to think of this as the package or as the individual pieces that add into that? I suspect it will go towards, let's make sure every single component works and that they can work with the others, but we'll still look at the component level. I don't know if we could get into any trouble by referencing it as a system in this bill. It'd be something worth looking into, though.
Anything further? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Any further public testimony? You're getting along better without your crutches. Nathan, please identify yourself for the committee if you could, please. And
Chairman
your-
Brown, members of the committee, thank you for the time today. My name is Nathan Nicholas with the Cook Law Firm here in Cheyenne. I'm here on behalf of my client, Rocky Mountain Power. To set the stage a little bit, I want to point out that my prior career was as an electrical engineer. I have a degree in electrical engineering from the University of Wyoming. And prior to going to law school, for many years, I designed industrial power panels and a few residential power systems. This bill does present a lot of safety concerns to the utilities. We understand the attraction of allowing consumers to take control of their own electric bills and reduce our footprint. However, the bill that we've seen in Utah is still suffering issues. And while the UL standard is now out there, what we're seeing are panels that are actually composed of individually rated UL devices. The entire system itself is not UL rated. And this is proven to be provide safety concerns, not just for utilities, but for electricians, linemen, and even homeowners. The National Electric Code, the NEC, is designed to isolate the power supply from the load, and that's done at the breaker box. We've all seen a breaker box. You have generally a 200 amp breaker that shuts off your entire supply to the house, and then you have individual breakers for each circuit. When you start putting power on the load side of an electrical system, you start creating a situation where you can't necessarily isolate power from the load safely. So take, for example, you have a 15 amp breaker, as was discussed, so that it's rated actually for 12 amps of continuous use. You start pumping 10 amps of outside power onto that line, and then you can still draw 15 amps of service through your breaker. All of a sudden, someone can be pulling 22 amps through a circuit. You have 14 gauge wire, which is what's required for any NEC to carry 12 amps, but all of a sudden you're carrying 22 amps, which is almost 100% more, almost twice what it's rated for. And you start overheating wires, you start subjecting the house to electrical fires and other types of injuries and damage. And I understand that, you know, in a perfect system, this wouldn't happen. But draw the attention to even the California fires that happened in the last couple of years. What we were seeing is solar systems that were professionally engineered and designed and installed on rooftop solar that is supposed to cut off when the grid is de-energized, and they weren't shutting off. And you had linemen, you had firemen out there working on hot lines, even though the utility wasn't putting power onto the grid. So when you have an electrician coming to work on a house, you have a lineman working on the lines outside of the house, there's no guarantee that those lines are de-energized, even though the utility has de-energized their lines. And, you know, from a medical device standpoint and from the understanding what we know about cardiac arrest, we talk about microamps and milliamps crossing across the heart to stop it. 10 amps passing across the thoracic is certainly enough to cause heart failure. Even though the 10 amp we think of 10 amps in a 15 amp circuit as being underrated, it's still very dangerous to a person. This is a reason why backup generators and net metering systems are hooked between the meter and the breaker, so that you can shut off, de-energize the lines in the house with one breaker rather than something still potentially providing electrical current onto the system. And finally, there's a technical aspect to the utilities that doesn't get discussed often, but and is hard to understand, is what we call power quality. These are low cost, low budget items that, let's be honest, are probably being bought on Alibaba or Temu. They aren't providing the best sine wave power quality through the system. So as these units reach saturation across an entire system, across the entire grid, it's going to force utilities to upgrade line conditioners. It could potentially cause power electronic issues, and certainly can even cause issues in your neighbor's house that's running sensitive medical or electronic devices. This is going to cause an upgrade that is certainly going to have a cost impact across all consumers, not just, and probably will be more than offset what they're receiving from their 10 amp allotment on a plug-in solar system. Because of these concerns, we think that this bill should be taken to interim, study a little bit more closely, understand exactly how the devices are being implemented, manufactured, and sold, and how safe they really are before this becomes a law. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate your testimony. Committee, any questions for Nathan with Rocky Mountain Power, right?
Yes.
Yes, Representative Wiley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Nicholas, have you reviewed the bill? Can you go to page 3 at the bottom end of that one and the top end of page 4?
Okay, we're all there. And you have a question directly?
Yes,
Representative Wiley?
yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Nicholas, so that part of the bill is proposing some kind of a cutaway right there, so you don't backfeed into the grid. So would you be comfortable with language in there before the breaker?
Representative Wiley, I'm gonna have you re-ask the question just because Representative Geringer was being a good guy and providing a paper copy to Mr. Nicholas.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Mr. Nicholas, tell me when you get caught up there, but bottom of page 3 and top of page 4.
Yeah, Chairman Brown.
Please, Mr. Nicholas.
Thank you, Representative Geringer. Representative Wiley, I see that and we understand that that's the intent of the legislation. So here's my question though, and without being too preachy, is how are we, the utility, able to ensure that the devices that are being plugged in are indeed compliant, UL compliant? And what happens is it takes the safety out of the hands of the utility and puts it on the consumer. But unfortunately, if we have a lineman that's injured from a consumer's product, how do we recover from that?
Mr. Chairman.
Please follow up.
So, Mr. Nicholas, are you saying that the building inspectors and everything that we have, back at home, doing inspections of new construction and stuff are inadequate to be able to tell us if one of these devices are safe or not?
Mr. Nicholas?
Chairman Brown. Representative Wiley, I actually, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is as a renter or as a landlord, and you have a tenant in there that buys one of these very low cost, low quality power electronic device off of Amazon or Temu or something like that and plugs it into the system. Those are the concerns. These aren't, if these were built into and engineered into the housing, that becomes a net metering system, and that gets into a whole different set of policy discussions. These are off-the-shelf consumer devices, no different than a toaster, and that's the concern.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yes, Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Mr. Nicholas, for being here and testifying. I guess to do the comparison a little bit more, when a person has a regular generator hooked into a house system, what is it that makes the safety any better in that kind of situation versus this kind of plug-in device?
Certainly. So, for like a backup generator, like a natural gas powered backup generator, it does have a disconnect. So it disconnects the power from the meter, and then it kicks on. And then as the resident, you go in and flip off the breakers that you don't need, right? But that's running, and it's running. On this case, and it's still isolated between the breaker and the house, or the breakers still sit between the power supply and the house. This one is going on the backside of the breakers. So it's skipping all of the safety mechanisms that the NEC has had in place for 100 years by going between, it's now on the consumer side, the load side of the breakers, rather than on the supply side of the breakers as a professionally installed generator system would be.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so those disconnect devices, when they're installed, those are required to be inspected, say by a city or county inspector, typically?
Mr. Chairman,
Nicholas?
Representing Gary, that's correct. So these would be installed by licensed electricians generally and inspected by inspectors. These are not consumer grade appliances, essentially, which is what this bill would allow in this instance.
Anything further? Okay. Committee, anything further for Mr. Nicholas and Rocky Mountain Power? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bush. I think this might be your first time in front of transportation as well. Thank you for joining us, sir. Please identify yourself for the record, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Bush with Black Hills Energy. And yes, this is my first time in front of transportation. And thankfully for you, I hope we don't, or hopefully for you, we don't have any net metering discussions coming to your committee in the near future, because I can tell you I have scars from those discussions over the past few years. This, however, is not about net metering. Quickly, I will echo what Mr. Nicholas said somewhat. I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm a history major from the University of Wyoming. But my folks flagged this bill and had some concerns about the safety side as well. As has been discussed, there is no requirement for having an electrician install this like there is on a rooftop solar or larger system at your house. We also would not necessarily know where they are. Anyone can buy one of these and plug them in. So if there is some sort of an issue, our lineman could be showing up not knowing what's happened or what's going on with those systems if they're at their house or apartment or whatever. So some of those concerns that are out there, again, with the safety side of it, I think we've talked with Representative Storr. We would be happy to continue to work on this issue and see if we can't figure out a way forward. It's our same stance as the net metering issue. We're not opposed to it. We just want to make sure that it's done safely and appropriately and all those things. So it's a big lift, and I know there's been a lot of discussion around the concerns with safety here. So just leave it at that on this issue for now.
Committee, any questions for Mr. Bush and Black Hills Energy? I've got one, and I should probably ask this to the electrical engineer, but since you're a history major, we'll go ahead and open this up for your background here. I do have a thought on this idea that you just mentioned, you wouldn't know where they're at, right? And so I feel like this bill is coming to us in good faith saying, hey, we'd like to be able to plug these in and have this conversation in connection with the utilities. Is there anything prohibiting these with your guys' end user license agreement, or where they accept the power from you guys? Is there anything prohibiting the use of these currently with Black Hills? And then I'll ask the same question to Rocky Mountain Power.
Mr. Chairman, actually, I don't think so. I don't know what would prevent someone from doing this right now. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know the code system very well. Anything along those lines that would prevent this from happening right now. But, there is on page 4, no electric utility shall require a customer who uses or operates a plug-in solar generation device to install any additional controls or equipment beyond what is integrated in the plug-in solar, subject to subsection B. Obtain the approval of the electric utility before installing. So that's some of that language, I think, is what our folks kind of flagged as, hey, we'd like to know just if anybody alters their electric system in their home in general. That's something that generally you have to go get permits for and that kind of thing. It's again, something we just would want to be aware of if we're showing up on site to know what's there, whether it is one of these small systems or a generator or whatever. So, but otherwise I would defer to the true expert electrical engineer.
Well, before I let you go, I want to talk to you, Mr. Bush, regarding a wire carrying 22 amps and whether or not a wire carrying 22 amps. Just kidding. I'm not going to do that with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is now my favorite committee.
Mr. Nicholas, same question to you. What would prohibit? It seems again that this is coming as a good faith measure from the homeowners saying, hey, we'd like to be in law with this, but is there anything prohibiting it from you guys and your stance on this, from anybody plugging one of these into their 120 outlet at home and backfeeding currently?
Chairman Brown, I'm not aware of anything. I think that if you look at the National Electric Code, if you're familiar with the idea of a Widowmaker plug, so you have a plug that has two male ends, and you take a generator and plug it into your generator and plug it into your outlet, that is strictly forbidden in the National Electric Code. And that's essentially what these solar panels are doing. So I think the intent is to eliminate that gray area and say that these are now allowed because we have modern electronic systems that are small enough on the consumer side to make them safe. And I don't know that we necessarily disagree with that, but I think that there just needs to be more understanding and a little more study on it before this becomes a statutory exemption to the NEC, essentially.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for the clarification on that. Any questions for our utilities at the table, gentlemen? Seeing none, thank you both very much. Anybody else in the room before we head online? Mr. Winnie? I don't know that we've ever seen you in here either. I'm just kidding, Bill.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Winnie, Sublette County. Having gone through the drill of putting in a manual generator backup system on my house that meets code, and later upgrading it a bit, what you're struggling with is if you put in a manual backup generator of some kind, and these solar things would be a similar thing, you're required to have an interlock on your panel. There's a manual interlock, it's UL approved, that prevents your input breaker from the system and the breaker from your input both closed at the same time. This prevents backfeeding of the external grid, and that's what they're worried about. But what do you do if somebody just buys one of these things and installs it? You can backfeed the grid, and you know, in the case of my neck of the woods out there, we had the Roosevelt fire a few years ago, and it just wiped out the grid. And before they let people go back into their houses, the electric company had to come in and go through house by house to make sure that the electrical system was safe. Well, I'd been in my house. I stayed at my house and I ran my generator for some 50 hours over the time the grid was down. And that manual interlock, which I installed on my panel, prevented that backfeeding of the external grid. That's the real core issue you're dealing with here, along with a few other things, but that's the core, is how do you make it safe out there so that electrician outside of the house, out on the grid, doesn't get injured because your generator is backfeeding outside. Subject to your questions. Thank you.
Ready? Any questions for Mr. Winnie? Appreciate you, Mr. Winnie. Thank you very much. Any further testimony in the room? Seeing none, we'll close public testimony in the room. And what I'm going to do is, just because we are running short on time, I would like to try to get our other file in. I'm going to ask for our individuals who are looking to speak on this to keep it to 2 minutes or less. Let's go ahead and start with, I had Patrick Lawson is on here originally, but I think I have Sean Taylor. Is that right? Let's let Sean Taylor in first, please.
Sean Taylor should be online in just a second, and I'm going to go ahead and promote all three just to expedite.
Thank you very much, Corey.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me all right?
Mr. Taylor, we can hear you. There you are. So you're not driving an electric vehicle, but
Nope.
appreciate you dressing up for the occasion as well. Thank you.
Well, I apologize for not being there in person, and I apologize for my address. I'm sitting in my F-150 in a parking lot in Sheridan, waiting to weigh in on this issue. My name's Sean Taylor. I'm the executive director of the Wyoming Rural Electric Association. Also, my first time before the Transportation Committee. As some folks know, we represent all the rural electric utilities, 11 of them across the state of Wyoming. If our members want to do something like this, we want to work with them. I would agree with some of the concerns raised by the other utility folks on safety and backfeed issues. I appreciate the proponents of the bill reaching out, as well as Representative Storer. I would also agree it might not be ready for prime time, but if the committee decides to move this bill forward, we have some amendment language that we would work with Representative Storer and others on in terms of notification and safety issues that have already been raised here today, as well as if it goes to an interim committee. Where we stand ready to work with everybody on this, because again, if our members and we're owned by our members, we're nonprofit utilities, and if our member owners, if this is something that they want and see value in, we want to work with them. We just have a few concerns how the bill's currently written, and I hope that was quick enough. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Committee, any questions for Mr. Taylor? I'll just correct you. It was about 10 years ago that you stood in front of this committee and we got your line workers put in there for the move over law. So it's not your first time.
Oh, that's right.
Been here, so
Yes.
you've been here
Sorry.
before.
It's
Appreciate
a lot has changed in 10 years.
that. It has. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. Let's go
Thank
ahead.
you all.
Ms. Ellis, next, please. Hi, Ms. Ellis.
afternoon,
Please
Chair.
introduce yourself to the committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Brown, members of the committee. My name is Hannah Ellis. I'm representing BrightSaver, a national nonprofit dedicated to building the plug-in solar movement in the U.S., making solar ownership affordable and accessible to everyone. And we strongly support HB 146 to allow the people of Wyoming to access plug-in solar, saving money by reducing their electricity bills. This bill would expand energy choice, lower costs for families, and do so safely. So to address some of the concerns on safety, I just want to note that in December of last year, 2025, UL Standards and Engagement released a national safety standard for plug-in solar specifically. These products must be tested by a nationally recognized testing laboratory and meet rigorous requirements to prevent electrical shock, fire, and structural hazards. The system also includes automatic shutoff protections that were also mentioned in other testimony. If the grid goes down, the inverter immediately stops producing power, preventing backfeed to utility lines and protecting linemen. And modern power control systems monitor electric flow and automatically reduce or shut off generation if wiring were ever approaching unsafe levels. Home wiring remains governed by the National Electric Code, and this bill does not bypass existing safety rules. Finally, I just want to note that this technology is already in widespread use. In Germany, it's deployed roughly 4 million plug-in systems in the past decade, and there have been no significant safety incidences reported. And I will yield the rest of my time. Thank you, Chair and Committee, for the time to share our support.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ellis. Committee, any questions for Ms. Ellis and BrightSaver? Seeing none, thank you very much. That was very pithy and much appreciated. Let's go ahead and let, I believe Mr. Lawson was also up there. Mr. Lawson, welcome back.
Thank you for having me again, Chairman. I just wanted to just put in my 2 cents that I'm supportive of this bill. I think it would be massively beneficial. There is already a product that's available, EcoFlow Stream. So if you wanted to look that up and see all the safety mechanisms that they have, basically if it's plugged in and it doesn't have grid power, it does not turn on, it does not inject power. So it looks, they've been around for over 10 years. I've used their products. I would trust them. They're not just a cheap Alibaba knockoff thing. And I think it would save people a lot of money. I'm also a member of the Northern Arapaho tribe, and I know there's a lot of our members that would benefit a lot. They're stating on their website they could save up to $1,000 a month. I think Wyoming weather and things, it might not be that much, and our electricity here is a bit cheaper, but honestly, you know, $400 or $500, that would make a big difference for a lot of people, and I would support this.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Lawson. Appreciate your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Okay. Any further public testimony? Seeing none, we'll close public testimony and bring the bill back to the dais. Committee, what is your pleasure? Any movements? Seeing no movement, this bill will die for lack of motion. All right. Representative Storer? Yes, Representative Garner.
If I might comment, I do appreciate you bringing this forward, Representative Storer, and I would encourage you to bring it as part of an interim topic, just so that we can flesh this out a little bit more. I think there's definitely some serious safety concerns that could be allayed through the process, but if you could bring it back, that'd be great.
Thank you very much, Representative Storer. We do appreciate you. All right, with that, we have 13 minutes before we get to go sit for the next 14 hours and debate budget amendments. But we do have an interim bill here, and committee, we will work this bill. This is frankly, it's a pretty easy bill. We'll go ahead, General, we'll just bring you guys up. We'll just have you guys breeze through this. I don't know that we have to do a massive overhaul. Tim, if you've got anything in particular you want to call out. I do like, for the committee's edification here, as we're going through crossover and we're starting to see blue bills, if I can get your guys' input on what changed over on the other body, so we can speak to that out on the floor as well.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tim Shepard, Executive Director, Wyoming Veterans Commission. It's a pleasure to be here today. This is, as you said, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a pretty simple bill. Really, the whole idea of this was the language was in the statute that basically a county or DFS or whomever is involved in the process could potentially limit what veterans were, indigent veterans were interred and which ones weren't. And basically the language was about combat. And so if they had served in a combat situation, they were qualified. If they hadn't, they potentially weren't. Now, in reality, that had never been done. They had been taken care of. There was just concern about the language of the bill itself, or of the statute itself. And with that, I'd stand for any questions, Chairman.
Committee, any questions for the Veterans Commission directly, Mr. Shepard? Seeing none. General, you have anything else?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, my name is Major General Greg Porter, the Adjutant General. What got changed on the Senate side was the addition of $500 more, and that was really to get after transportation costs. There was some concern that potentially counties might be on the hook for some if there wasn't enough money then. So it's reimbursed by the exact amount. So they just extended it to $1,500 total, just to make sure that there was the counties wouldn't be on the hook from it. So that was the major, the only amendment that the committee came out of, sir.
Perfect. Thank you, General. Committee, any questions for the General and or Mr. Shepard at all? Much appreciated, gentlemen. Thank you very much. This was an interim topic. I think we breezed through this one very quickly in our second meeting, if I remember correctly. So is there any public testimony on this bill? All right, we've got some people moving up here. Please go ahead. Just fill the seats. Devin, you sure you don't want to just jump up here and just come charging up here, man? You're good. All right. All right. All right. You just look like you were chomping at the bit. Mr. Winnie, please introduce yourself for the record. Floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Winnie, Sublette County, 30 years active duty in the Navy. But the issue with indigent veterans is, how do we as a society say thank you to those that are on hard times? And there are veterans that carry baggage with them from combat. In the case of my father-in-law, whom I saw up close and personal, he was a veteran of the Bataan Death March and Japanese prisoner war camp, and he had baggage. Now, he wasn't indigent, but there are those that are. I support the bill. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Winnie? Seeing none? Counties, what do we got to say about this?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Jeremiah Riemann here on behalf of the County Commissioners Association. Mr. Chairman, I don't know that there's a committee that I haven't had to testify before at this point. Mr. Chairman, the Senate addressed an issue that we brought forward. I think the bill is good, looks clean. I mostly wanted to come up to make sure that if you had any questions about how the Indigent Burial Program works, happy to answer those. We administer the county side of that equation on behalf of the Department of Family Services. Of course, there's DFS representatives here. They can talk about their program, but it is a good program. And as the good director pointed out, I'm not aware of any instance where a county or the DFS have not taken care of our veterans. It is important. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Committee, any questions for Mr. Riemann? And I would say, I just want to say thank you to the counties and to DFS, especially just considering the fact that you guys have been doing this maybe without the reimbursement process being, put in at 100% at the way that it could have been in the past. So I appreciate the work that you guys have done to make sure that our indigent veterans are taken care of respectfully and tactfully. So thank you guys very much for that information.
Yeah,
and
and,
doing
and
that for us.
really a thank you to the legislature. A number of years ago, you provided some additional resources through a death certificate fee that allows for counties to be reimbursed for the expenses that they incur. DFS has a similar part of that statute. So a big thanks to you for helping us out.
I think that was 3 or 4 years ago we did that.
Right.
And helped, again, solidify that funding gap that we were missing with this program. So thank you, Mr. Reeman. Does DFS want to talk? Not so much? You're good? All right. Devin, last chance, man. All right. We don't have anybody else online for this one, correct? All right. Committee, we will close public comment. Is there any discussion on the bill? Moved by Geringer, seconded by Wiley. Any discussion on the bill? Any amendments? Seeing none, roll call on House Bill 146. Or I'm sorry, Senate file. I'm sorry, this is Senate file 11. I had 146 still set up on my computer.
This is a roll call vote for Senate File 11. Representative Banks is excused. Representative Geringer. Aye. Representative Larson left a absentee vote of aye. Representative McCann. Aye. Representative Nicholas is absent. Representative Posey. Vice Chair Tarver. Aye. Representative Wiley. Aye. Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes, 1 excused, 1 absent.
All right. And who wants to carry this one out on the floor? Vice Chair looks like he's ready to take this one on. Nice and easy. We've only had one committee bill, and I think we've only got 2 more coming over. Is that right? So I think there's going to be a couple lucky people that don't have to carry a bill out on the floor. I'll bat back up for you there, Vice Chairman. With that, committee, we will be adjourned until Thursday. Thank you so much.